Welcome everyone, we'll get started. Welcome to the next Alumni Career Webinar, Career Change for a Happier You with Tracey Gutierrez. I'm Maura Sweeney, Director of Alumni Career Development at Holy Cross, and I'm happy to welcome you to today's webinar, offered exclusively for the Holy Cross community. We'll be together for an hour. After the formal presentation, Tracey will take questions from you for as long as time allows, and so I encourage you to submit questions using the Q&A function located on the webinar control panel. You're also welcome to submit thoughts in the chat. It's a nice way to connect with one another as we're virtually distanced in many places of the country. So by all means, share thoughts and advice in the chat with one another also. This presentation is recorded and will be made available to all participants in a few days. And now it's my pleasure to introduce you to Tracey. So after spending over 15 years successfully climbing the ladder in the advertising industry, Tracey realized she was missing something essential from her life. She left her corporate job to create her own career coaching business. Her mission is to help people relentlessly pursue happiness so they can create amazing, unique, fulfilling lives for themselves and their families. Who doesn't want that? Tracey is a certified professional coach, a nationally certified online profile expert, and an authorized facilitator of Now What career coaching. She holds a master's in business administration and has worked in sales, advertising, media, marketing, consulting, and research. Tracey lives in Maplewood, New Jersey, just outside of New York City, with her husband and her 2 kids, and she was referred to me by a fellow alum career coach, whom I believe is joining us on the call. So welcome, Michael, and thank you for referring me to Tracey. With that, I'll hand things over and let Tracey take things.
Thank you so much, Maura, and I'm so excited to be here with the Holy Cross community, and I also wanted to thank Michael for introducing us. So fun for me to be able to escape my family life downstairs and do something helpful for other people. So I'm really thrilled to be here to talk about career change for a happier you. So just a little bit more background on me. I'm going to share a little bit about why I do what I do, and some of you may be able to relate to this too. I'm sure these pictures look somewhat familiar to many of you. So both of my parents actually came from immigrant families who came to the United States for a better life. So I was raised on 2 generations of people who believed that once you got a job, you stuck with it no matter what. My dad had a really tough childhood and often didn't know where his next meal would come from. So he was somebody who, once he found a stable job for himself that paid relatively well, he stuck it out day in and day out for his entire adult life, even though he hated literally every minute of it. When he was home, my dad never really talked about work, but his mood really affected our family so much that we always felt like we were walking on eggshells around him. So when I was a kid, my sister and I both made a vow that we were never going to stay in jobs that we hated just for the money, though, you know, we really respected and understood where my parents were coming from. So fast forward, after I graduated from business school, I had a handful of different jobs that I would stay in for, 8 months to a year, something so I could round up to a year on my resume while I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. My dad always wanted me to stay with the first job and stop complaining because I was lucky to have a job in the first place. But if I had listened to him, I would probably still be working in the basement of a converted funeral home in a room with no windows doing translation work, which was really boring and not what I was meant to be doing here. My parents really meant well, but it really wasn't a great message for my self-esteem. And before long, I did actually settle into a job that I didn't love. It was okay, and I liked certain things about it, and it worked for a while. But fast forward 9 years, I was married, I had kids, and I was absolutely miserable. I kept climbing the corporate ladder because that's what you do. I never saw my kids, I never saw my husband, I was stressed, and I was very short-tempered when I was home. And I realized I was doing it just for the money. And I had that aha moment. I was like, oh my gosh, I am doing exactly what my father did. And it was a really horrifying realization for me. So you can see how much family and culture can affect your career decisions, not to mention society as a whole. And I realized I wanted to be home with my kids more. I was really worried that I was missing out on their childhood years and that I would regret it forever. And that really sparked something in me to take action. Where I live, I was able to see a lot of parents around me who had a variety of different careers that allowed them the flexibility to be home more And I kept wondering, like, what did I do wrong? I didn't know how to get one of those jobs or how to figure out what I even wanted to do next. So what I did was I hired a life coach, and that totally transformed my life. I couldn't see a way out, but she could. While I was working with her, neither of us knew what it was, but she held that dream for me in a way that my friends and family couldn't, because they were too invested in me, and they wanted what was safe for me. But she was really able to hold that dream, and she kept saying, we don't know what it is yet, but we will figure it out together. So working with her, I realized that I'm actually here to help people like myself and my father see the light, and to have the hope and courage to change the trajectory of our lives. As you can see, I eventually changed careers so I could focus more on my family life and also help other people navigate this essential part of life, which is our career. When I decided to become a career coach, I did a ton of research to figure out the best program to help people get clear on what they wanted out of their next career move. I had worked with a life coach for my transition, and while she was amazing for me in many ways, figuring out the career piece took us a lot of time. I worked with her for over 2 years. I spent a lot of money, and I wanted a solution that would be much more time efficient and cost effective for people, and all roads kept leading me to this amazing woman named Laura Berman Fortgang. Laura's a career coach. She was one of the first career coaches in the United States. She's also an author and speaker. In fact, she's one of the founding members of the International Coach Federation, which is the leading global regulatory organization for coaching professionals. She's appeared on TED Talks, Fast Company, New York Times, CNN, Oprah, and she is the one that authorized, that put together the Now What career coaching methodology. And what's different about it is that it really focuses on your values and figuring out who you are, instead of focusing on what you should be in order to find career happiness. And this book is amazing. She's written a number of books. This book, Now What, is the curriculum that I use with my clients who are trying to figure out a new career path. And it's something you can buy on Amazon for 17 bucks. So you might want to take a look at it. So today we're going to be talking about 4 main topics. The first is determining what you value most in life in order to clarify your next career move. The second is overcoming the blocks that get in the way of making a career change. The third is trying to connect with a sense of purpose in your life. And the fourth is money, the bottom line. But before we get into the content of today's talk, we're going to take a little poll, because I would love to hear why you're here today. So some of you may have been furloughed or laid off, or maybe you're going back to work after a long hiatus. You might hate your job and want to do something different. Perhaps you're looking for more balance between your job and family, like I was. Maybe you're happy in your job, but you want to learn something new, or maybe it's none of the above. If you would vote here, that would be super helpful for me to see why you came today. Okay, so let's take a look at the results. Okay, so 46% of you said that you hate your job and want to do something different, followed by you've been furloughed or laid off, you're looking to go back to work after a hiatus, and then you're happy in your job but want to learn something new, and lastly, you want more balance between your job and family, and none of the above. Great, thank you, that's super helpful. Okay, so we will keep going. So for the next hour, I ask that you listen with a mindset of possibility, not probability. What do I mean by that? Well, something can be possible even if it isn't highly likely or probable. In order for a big change to happen, you have to believe it's possible. What we're talking about is not the path of least resistance, and it's probably not what everyone else is doing. So when you really think about it, are most of the people that you know really happy with their careers? I know for me, most of my friends and even family are not that thrilled with where their career has ended up. But what's possible if you stop believing the story you tell yourself about your limits? We are not going for what everyone else has. We are going for what's best for you. And most people will not take the time to do this work. Success is 80% psychology and only 20% skill. So keep that in mind. It's all your mindset. So the first topic is, what do you value most? What's important to us evolves over time, but very often our career hasn't kept up with that evolution. How many of you are in jobs or careers that you found fulfilling in the past, but not anymore? It sounds like almost 50% of you might be in that situation. I know it can be really shocking and surprising to wake up one day and realize that what once made you happy doesn't make you happy anymore. And you really start to question yourself and think, is there something wrong with me? But over time, your values really can change. One of my former clients had been working at Google for many years, and she used to really love her job. She thought it was like job heaven. And for many people, that's the impression that Google has. She was making good money. She loved the perks of working there, like the free lunch and the good benefits. She enjoyed her colleagues. She loved pretty much everything about it. But then 7 years later, fast forward, now she's got 2 kids. She's been reorged a handful of times. She doesn't feel in control of her career, and she feels like she's pretty much just staying there for the money. When she came to me, she was asking herself, what's wrong with me? Because if I can't be happy at Google, maybe, something's seriously wrong with me. And where could she be happy? She was really stuck, and she was depressed and stressed out. It really started to affect her family and her health. She was short with her kids. She was frustrated that she didn't have quality time with them, and it put a lot of pressure on the time she did have with them to be perfect, which of course it never is. She started taking medication for insomnia as well as depression. She and her husband were seeing a couples counselor because the relationship was really stressed. So things had gotten pretty bad. Through our work together, it became clear that nothing was actually wrong with her at all. It was just that her values and priorities had shifted without her consciously realizing it, and she hadn't made any changes in the way she was living. So finances and career were actually no longer her top values like they once had been. Her kids and family were now her top values. She secretly longed to be home more with her kids and be there when they were home from school. And she actually had a side gig as a family portrait photographer that she loved, and sometimes she would fantasize about taking it more seriously as a legitimate business. And fast forward to now, she's left Google, she's a photographer, she gets to be there for her kids, and she actually was voted in her town, she lives in Hoboken, she was voted 1 year after leaving her job at Google, the best family photographer in Hoboken. So once she was able to identify her most important values, it became the grounding force that informed her of her career decisions. And her cool job at Google, as amazing as Google is as a company, didn't really honor her priority to be home more for her kids. And that was a really huge aha moment for her. So keeping in touch with the evolution of your values, your needs, and what you want, and how that relates to your career is really, really critical for career satisfaction. So on this slide, you can Google top values or values charts. There's a ton of resources out there that'll help you connect with what your top values are. So I encourage you to do this exploration and really think, what are my top values now? And are you living your life aligned with those values? If not, you are probably not leading your best life. I know when I started out in my career, I had graduated from business school and I had a ton of loans. So I would have said back then that my top values were probably adventure, challenge, and financial freedom. With all those student loans, they weren't going to get paid off by themselves. And I was ready to challenge myself and see what I was made of. And I also really wanted to travel and see the world. But it's funny, our values when you're in your 20s are so different from, when I started really questioning my career decisions. I was in my early 40s. I had had my second child. While I was pregnant with my second child, I got a huge promotion, but I was just completely miserable. My values had changed, and my top values at that point were family, balance, and happiness. Such a change, right? So it's really important to take a look at where your values are. So topic number 2 today is blocks to clarity. Deciding to make a change in your career is a really big step, but actually doing it is a whole nother thing. And here are the most common things that get in the way of making a career move. With the Now What methodology, it's called blocks to clarity. And the 3 main blocks to clarity are figuring out what you do want to do, how we see ourselves, and the third block is self-management and how to manage yourself to keep going and not let your mind talk you out of making a career change that you really want. So for many people, it's much easier to name what we're disgruntled with than to name exactly what we want. And the entire now what process that I coach people on to help them figure out a new career path all starts with this simple exercise of naming what you hate. So you're going to write down all of the things that you either hate about your current job or situation or complaints that you've had about past jobs. And you want to try to be very specific. Like, I hate my boss. He's a micromanager and doesn't trust me. The politics here are making me crazy. Or I don't like not knowing what's expected of me. So I recommend, putting together at least a list of 5 things that you hate or your complaints. And next to each one of those things, think about, well, what do you want as a result of that specific hate? So if you said, I hate my boss, then maybe that means I want to work for someone I respect who respects me in return. Or maybe it means I don't want to have a boss. Maybe you want to be your own boss. If you said the politics at your company are making you crazy, maybe that means that what you want is to work someplace that's fair and transparent. And if you said, I don't like not knowing what's expected to me, then maybe that corresponding want is, I want clear communication and training. So if anyone wants to share their hates, feel free to post it in the chat, but be really specific about when you're coming up with your wants. You want to try to be able to be specific so you can really start envisioning your dream job situation. So the second block is how we see ourselves. How you see yourself can really get in the way of making a career change. What I mean by that is we place so much of our identity with our jobs that it can be really hard to separate from the package or the externalities of that job, even if you hate the job. Any change in life can feel like a loss, even if it's a good change and something you really want. So I'm just going to repeat that. Any change in your life can feel like a loss, even if it's a change for the better, something that you really want. So it's important to remember that that package is just an illusion. Only the parts you can carry forward are real. The package is the past, and what you can bring forward with you is the future. So in the Now What methodology, she likes to use the analogy of an egg. The egg has a shell that can be removed, but only once the shell is removed can you make the egg into a variety of things. You can make it scrambled, hard-boiled, you can make an omelet. And the same goes for you. Once you're out of that shell that's defined you, you can take all of the transferable pieces and make something else out of your career entirely. But it really is important to acknowledge the things that you might be saying goodbye to. What you can't carry forward from one career to the next is just the package that those qualities came in. So you might be saying goodbye to the status, the opinion others have of you, that beautiful corner office, your expense account, and other perks and bells and whistles. It can be difficult to say goodbye to all of this because you've built a whole identity around it. I had a client who was a very senior level person at an advertising agency. She had worked her way up. She'd been in advertising her whole career and she used to love it, but she made it to pretty much the top level where the business was really focused on bringing in new accounts. She actually hated the work. And we worked a lot trying to figure out what she really wanted. And so much of what she was sticking around in that job for was the package, the title and the prestige of working for this huge agency. But when we worked together, she actually figured out that the work that she loved was 2 levels down from where she was now. And that happens a lot too. We just kind of blindly, we achieve. And then sometimes people realize, oh, I actually don't like it up here. And so in her situation, we had to figure out everything she would have to mourn. And in time, and it did take her time, she decided she was okay saying goodbye to those things. And she eventually got a great job at a competitor that was at a lower level, but it had flexibility and she was doing what she loves. And so for her, it was worth the trade-off. So you have to kind of think about those things. And the key to being able to move on is taking the good with you to a new situation. All of the qualities, the skills and lessons that you have from your career, what that will serve you in your next career and for the rest of your life. Hard skills that are learned skills, like technical skills that you might have, your degrees and certificates, maybe you speak a foreign language, or maybe you're great at budgeting and accounting. And then there's also the soft skills, which are more the people skills. Things like leadership, being able to manage difficult people, time management, organization, that kind of thing. So by separating yourself from that external package, you'll free yourself and you'll be able to focus from loss to opportunity. And really think about every ending is an opportunity for something new and something better. So the third block to getting clear on what you want from your next career move is self-management. So how do you begin to manage your mind so that you don't stop yourself from moving forward with a career change that you know you really want? This is huge, and this is where most people will stop. We all have hidden limiting beliefs that can hold us back from making a change. Beliefs are very powerful, and they either empower you or they can stop you dead in your tracks. They shape the way you see the world, and they influence the actions that you take. But truth be told, most limits are self-imposed. They might not appear to because they're so integrated into your life that the lines are blurred, and they're so tightly woven into the fabric of your life that they've become truth. It's important to understand the source of these beliefs so that you can release yourself from their grip. Many times, the source of these beliefs are our parents. And many adults grow up to find that their parents' expectations were the basis for many of their career and life decisions, and that just doesn't fit them anymore. So I'll give you an example. Back to that client who had left her job at Google. She had very strong limiting beliefs stemming from her childhood. Her mother never worked outside the home, and she was actually an alcoholic. And my client worked her butt off her whole life to get out of her parents' house, to be independent, to have freedom. She was a super hard worker, you know, type A, top of the class. She was very successful. And she felt like leaving Google would mean that she was a failure, that she was giving up. But she loved being a mother and wanted so badly to provide a normal, happy childhood for her kids. But she associated being home with failure because look at her mom, that was her proof. So she was actually able to overcome her limiting beliefs by figuring out where they came from so that they didn't hold a grip on her anymore. So in her case, her limiting beliefs came from her parents and her childhood, but other sources of our beliefs can be cultural, societal, they can stem from guilt, fear, even conflicting desires like the desire to have a family, while also the desire to have a career that involves travel and things like that. So once you figure out the sources of your limiting beliefs, you can really begin to shift those beliefs and be free to move forward with the change that you want. So ask yourself, when you're thinking about these limiting beliefs that you have, is believing this assumption going to get me where I want to go? In other words, is it productive to operate under this assumption? Probably not. And if it isn't productive, you need to make a decision to believe differently. You need to trick your brain and just stop telling yourself these limiting beliefs and shift it to something that's more productive. Instead of saying, I'm never going to find a job I love, replace it with, I can find a job I love if I don't give up. If there really is something that you need to overcome, like you can't get a technical position without specific training, then you'll know, but there's no sense in stopping yourself when you really don't have to. So in order to help you dissolve it further, look at it through the lens of possibility versus probability. So when we dreamed of putting humans into space, we had to believe that it was possible to do so. Was it probable? Was it likely? No, because it had never been done before, right? But you have to invest in what is possible. And that is how a new direction can be revealed to you and how you can get unstuck. For every limiting belief you have, think about what's probable about it and what is possible if you stop believing it and giving it power. Possibility is all you need to move forward. Let life tell you if you're wrong. You don't have to decide that right now. When you're in a mindset of loss, your creativity is down, you don't have energy, it's contagious, and you're also really limiting your possibilities. So please, if you just take one thing away from this talk today, I ask that you work on your mindset toward one of possibility. And find examples in real life, evidence that you can do it. Find people that have made the shift that you want to make, so that you can see that there really are people that have done this before. So topic 3, finding your life's purpose. The key to finding your life's purpose is defining what meaningful work is to you. And everyone's definition of meaning is different. The only thing that matters is if it's meaningful to you and no one else. And this is really crucial to feeling happy with your life and your career. And I'll give you a personal example. I really enjoyed my job in advertising sales in the beginning. I had a number of jobs before that where I was stuck behind a desk doing like number crunching and research. And it was the first job that I had where I had freedom. And I had a car allowance and an expense report, and I was supposed to be out of the office all day. So, there were certain things about it that I really enjoyed. The money was actually pretty good. It was fun. It was pretty easy, and it was social. So, at that time, those things seemed to work for me for a while. But over time, it really mattered to me that I didn't feel like I was doing work that really was making a difference in the world and helping people. And I would look around me and I would think, like, how come everybody else here seems okay with this? Why am I the only person that can't connect to a deeper meaning with this job? And it was just a personal thing that's meaningful work to me. I came to realize was in helping people. But, the discomfort in this job only came after I was pretty financially stable. I'd paid off all my student loans and I bought my first house. And my values had changed because I had kids, and I wanted to feel like if I'm going to be away from my kids all day, it better be for something important. And I just couldn't reconcile that I was leaving my kids with a stranger in order to sell commercials. I wouldn't even let my kids watch commercials. So I wondered, what was going on here? And I kept seeing actually a commercial on TV for an online college, and it had this tagline, something that it was something about like matter, or do something that matters. And I would always see that commercial, and it really struck a chord with me. And that's when I started working with a coach on trying to figure out what my life was about and what meaningful work was to me. I was really having one of those existential crises, like, what am I put on this planet for? And it's really important to talk about meaning, because that's something that will get you out of bed in the morning and give you direction in your day and your life. We all want to know that we matter and that we can make a difference. And we want to know where we fit into the whole, and that gives us peace of mind. We want to feel good about ourselves. And the answer is really trying to connect to a sense of purpose. So there are a number of ways in trying to figure out what your purpose is. And one of them is in recognizing how you impact other people. This is really helpful in moving your life in a more satisfying direction. Who are you to other people? The natural built-in use that you provide to the world and it's often been part of you for a very long time, sometimes as far back as childhood, but usually from young adulthood on. So look for a theme of who you are naturally to other people. I know a lot of people I work with find this challenging. And I suggest that you ask other people who you are to them. You can ask your friends, your family, neighbors even. What do they use you for? Sometimes who you are also isn't necessarily who you're meant to be. And the way to recognize that is if it's something that brings you no joy. If it's something that comes naturally to you but sucks the life out of you, it's really worth digging into. And you can ask yourself, what's motivating me to keep doing this? Oftentimes a strength, gift, or talent has gotten misdirected. And that doesn't mean that you have to exclude it from your life. It just needs to be redirected in a way that brings you energy instead of exhausting you. Like, for example, I do work with a lot of people who have been stay-at-home parents for a while, and many of them suffer from what we call volunteer fatigue. They have this obsessive need to help, but then it gets to the point where they can't say no, and they've overcommitted and they start becoming resentful. So that's what I mean here by, sometimes the strength can get misdirected. How many of you have had a dream or vision for yourself and how your life was going to go, or what you were going to be when you grew up? Another way to discover your purpose is by dissecting that dream to see if we can find any clues that will help point you in a new direction. But here's where the dream can get a little tricky. When we have a certain dream or vision for ourselves, we create a package for it. But often that package can be misleading. Like, for example, maybe you wanted to be a doctor when you were a kid, but you decided not to go to medical school. And the fact is that you don't have the credentials to be a doctor. So you mourn the fact that you never got to live your dream. But the doctor is just the package. So in that analogy of the egg and the shell, it's the eggshell. The yolk at the center, what is within the package, is what we're trying to discover. And that's the part of the dream that reveals who you're meant to be versus just focusing on what you're meant to do. The package is the what, and what's inside the package is the who. That's the essence of your dream. So back to the doctor example, the who could be someone who affects people's lives for the better. If you look at it that way, there are so many different packages that comes in. You can affect people's lives for the better in so many different ways. Also, some people are lucky enough to have reached many of their dreams already. And if you're in that situation, try to find a common theme amongst those dreams and what you've accomplished already to connect with a sense of purpose. What's the essence of that dream? Or other people may never have had a dream, but you could still do this exercise. If you want to stop doing something or you want out of a current situation, that is also a dream in itself. So you want to ask yourself, if you were no longer doing that, what would be possible for you and the world? What would you be free to express or do? What do people say you should do or be? Is there a theme to what people have said? It doesn't mean you should go off and run and do that very thing, but it could hold clues as to your future direction. This is another one of those that if you get stuck or if you find this challenging, ask some trusted friends and family what they could see you or what they thought you should do when you were little or what they could see you doing in the future. And try not to focus too much on the package and try instead to come up with the who that corresponds with that. So if they said, oh, I always thought you should be a poet, think about, well, who is a poet in the world? And you might say that poets are people who move people to think, feel, or act with their words. And if you think of it that way, there are a number of different packages that could come in. The last way that you can uncover your life's purpose is by, exploring what your life has been about, what your life represents or has represented as a whole. Is there anything that jumps out as an overriding theme? These themes could be obstacles that you've overcome or life lessons that you've had to learn. For example, maybe your life has been about sacrifice or finding your own way or beating the odds. Or maybe your life has been about fighting prejudice and cultural limits. Or has it been about charity or caretaking or advocacy? Sometimes your interpretation of your life's theme can indicate a sense of purpose. I worked with a young gentleman a few months ago who had moved to my area of New Jersey from Canada for his wife's job. And he was really struggling and trying to figure out what he wanted from his next career move. And he had been working in sales at Coca-Cola for a number of years and had a very successful sales career, but he, like me, just really didn't feel like he wasn't able to connect with a sense of purpose with that job. and he really was struggling with what he wanted to do. And we took a look at what his life had been about. He was the oldest brother of five brothers. And it turns out that he was always into sports. He differentiated himself from his other brothers because he was the one that was amazing at sports. And he actually really loved coaching, and he coached all of his brothers in soccer. And what's interesting about that is I put him in touch with one of my kids who was taking soccer at the time, just to have an informational interview with somebody who was a soccer coach in this area, just to see what came of it. And, you know, it was just meant to be an informational interview, but within 2 weeks, my client had a job working for this soccer organization as a coach. And funny enough, you know, all the people that are furloughed and out of work right now, you'd think he would be out of work, but he's actually teaching kids online through this organization, and he's doing soccer coaching, and he's thrilled. So, you know, that's an example of how you can interpret your life's theme and figure out a happy next move. Having purpose in your life is about making the most of what comes naturally to you. Your purpose is who you are and what you cause just by being yourself. Some of you might discover that finding meaningful work might actually not be as important as you might have thought, as long as your work allows you the time and freedom to pursue what is most meaningful to you on the side. Also, many people find a sense of peace in recognizing that their job is the financial support that allows them to have a life that is productive and purposeful. Another thing, many people mistakenly believe that if you're good at something, then that's what you should be doing with your life. It may have been part of what makes you successful, but is no longer it if you aren't happy doing it anymore. If you've been sticking with a job or career for this reason, please know that you are now free. You can actually outgrow a skill or situation. Once it becomes dull or boring or feels like a chore, it's time for a bigger challenge in the same area, or maybe it's time to move on to something new. So just to recap, we've identified what is most important to you and how that may connect to current dissatisfaction in your career and why that is. We also talked about how to get clear on what you want from your next career move. And the blocks to clarity we talked about were identifying how your complaints can point to what you do want. We talked about how we see ourselves and the importance of freeing ourselves from the package, and how we have many transferable pieces to bring to a new career. And we identified the sources of our beliefs that can limit us and hold us back from really pursuing what makes us happy. And then we talked about the importance of connecting with a sense of purpose and identifying what meaningful work is to you. But let's keep going, because there's one more topic I'd like to cover before we wrap up. And that is the biggie, the bottom line. This is the big topic that will hold most people back: money. And it's funny because in the Now What curriculum, this chapter is towards the end, because the whole idea behind the Now What methodology and trying to figure out what you're meant to do is to keep your options open and not limit yourself before you have to. Money is likely what has caused you to stay where you are even though you're not happy, or it's preventing you from making a move toward what you really want to do. If you have any doubts about moving forward with your life, you can always blame your lack of inertia on money. But what are some beliefs that you might hold about money? Feel free to put it in the chat. Everybody has tie-ups when it comes to money. It just shows up in different ways. But oddly enough, it isn't always the lack of money that stops us. Often, it's actually the abundance of money that stops us. You've probably asked yourself at some point or other, if I make a change, can I make the same money? And the reality is most of us are not willing to alter our lifestyle to enhance our inner lives and make happiness the bottom line. In today's culture, we've come to define having less or downsizing our lifestyle as something of a failure. But we often congratulate those who have the courage to do that, because we don't have that courage. So ask yourself, how much is really enough for me and my family? I'll use the example of my father. who I mentioned hated every single day of his working life. I remember telling him that I would much rather go to a state school and to have him in a job where he was happy, because he always said, I want you to be able to go to whatever college you wanted. So that made me feel like, oh, he's miserable because of me. And I would have much rather had made sacrifices to a smaller house, go to a school that was cheaper, and had a happy dad. So ask yourself, who are you doing it for? Once you've figured out what you really want to do, it's essential to look at the financial aspect of how it will affect your bottom line. I'm not going to pretend it isn't important, but it may not be financially possible for you to make the change now, but with careful planning, can you phase into it? I know my personal transition took almost 3 years, and our lifestyle has definitely changed, but I also have a different relationship with money than I used to, and I appreciate it much more. When I was in my unhappy jobs working in the city, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I would leave during my lunch break and go bolt to Sephora and, get myself a $28 new lipstick just to make myself feel better. Like, if I'm going to spend money on a $28 lipstick, I'm going to appreciate it so much. Whereas back then I would come back home like, oh, I already have this color, just adding it to the collection. So, I think that it's really important to look at budgeting and how much you really need. There are many free and inexpensive money tracking websites out there. So if you're starting to think about a career transition and you don't have a good handle on your money, budgeting and planning will be really important to you as you transition towards your dream career. You don't know what you don't know, and awareness is the first step toward being able to make the change that you want. And like I said, my transition took 3 years. We worked with a financial planner on how much we were going to need, and I sucked it up in a job I wasn't happy with for 3 years, but it made it manageable because I knew that I was working towards a goal of getting the hell out of there. So having goals like that are really important. I also don't want you to blindly change jobs not knowing what the financial impact is going to be, because that causes a huge amount of stress in the future. So I love this quote from Mark Twain. 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the ones you did. So throw off the bowlines, sail away from safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sails, explore, dream, discover. Many people do not have the courage to act on their convictions, and they will call you crazy when you act on yours. Most people will not regret having taken a leap of faith and trying something new. The regret really does come from never following your dreams. So if you're serious about solving this, you do have a choice. You can keep doing what you're doing and hope it gets better, or you can solve this whole thing by dedicating time to solve the problem and approaching it from a mindset of possibility. I'd be honored to talk with you about that and see if I can help you uncover any of your questions and help you get unstuck. Those of you who are ready to start working towards figuring out what's next for you, I offer free consultations on my website, which is traceygutierrez.com. I work both one-on-one, and I also have a few groups that I coach every year. I've got one group actually starting next week, and there's still room. So if you're interested, please feel free to email me or set up a consultation on my website. I'll also be hanging out after the meeting if anyone has any questions or comments. So thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it, and I hope it was helpful.
Thank you very much, Tracy. It was. I was just taking copious notes. So I think it's so important to check in on yourself and check in, particularly during times like this that are very stressful for most of us.
Right.
To check in, okay, what's making me unhappy? Is it my job? Is it something else? Where can I make that tweak? So this was really wonderful.
Good.
And for everyone who's here, you'll find the Q&A on your webinar control panel. If you have any questions that have popped up, by all means, type them in. I know we fielded a few questions from registration also. And so one that didn't get answered during the course of the conversation, Tracy, is coming from someone who asks, what is the best advice for a stay-at-home mom who is looking to rejoin the workforce in a new field?
Hmm. Yeah, so I do work a lot with stay-at-home moms that want to go back to work, but they don't want to go back doing what they were doing before.
Mm.
I think that there are a lot of resources now for moms and dads that were stay-at-home dads as well, or for people that have taken a long hiatus to
Mm.
take care of other loved ones. There are programs that are called returnships that you can look up. And that's for people that have taken a hiatus. And it seems like most of those are in the financial service industry, but they are becoming more and more popular. There's also programs like the Mom Project, which connects employers who are looking for moms that want to go back to work with moms that want to go back to work. And you just set up a profile on the website and they send you listings that come available. And oftentimes they're temporary jobs or covering for someone on maternity leave. And almost always, well, now they're remote jobs, but even before the quarantine, many of them were remote jobs and had flexibility. But also I would say, the biggie for most people that are stay-at-home moms that I see are, they want to figure out like where they're going to end up. And they feel like that next move has to be the final move.
Mm-hmm.
So don't try to take that kind of pressure off. If you want to go back to work, just start doing something and testing the waters. A lot of times the biggest struggle is trying to figure out how your family's life is going to be different once you go back to work. So you can start doing something part-time that's local, that's, maybe not exactly what you want to do, but it starts getting the family adjusted to you working and starts getting you thinking about, what you really want to do. So I would say, just try to feel like as long as it's in the right direction, it's a good start. Don't wait for the perfect opportunity.
Great. Well, and here's a question that came in about, from someone looking for a new job or during a career shift during this pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give to this person, knowing that job postings have become less available? We're in a totally new environment right now.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. What's interesting is that it's actually for certain industries, it's actually a really good time to conduct a job search because most people think that there are no jobs out there. And they also, people are so busy with managing homeschooling and other things that they just don't have the time, or they're not in that mentality to make a change.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had more people come to me since the pandemic started with just wanting interview practice. So I've seen that there are plenty of jobs out there, and they're now being filled in more untraditional ways. Like I just helped someone a few weeks ago with an interview that she had at Google, that she had been wanting to work in this particular division for over a year. And she had applied numerous times. Her resume never got picked up, and she saw the job again. And she said, you know what, I'm going to try something different. She found the hiring manager on LinkedIn and just reached out directly, sent him a message, and they didn't have to go through the formalities of all the rigmarole that Google usually has in place for interviews. And he said, let's set up some time next week. So the people are doing things in a much less conventional way too. And, what I recommend is it's a really good time to start networking with people that you haven't been in touch with for a long time, because over 70% of people, whether you're job changers or staying in the same industry, 70% of people nowadays are finding their next job through their network, not necessarily through online applications.
Great. That's fantastic.
Don't let the pandemic stop you.
Yeah. Yes, it's true. I mean, it stopped us in so many ways. We have to, have action somewhere.
Right.
Well, and there's a follow-up question too. What is a good way to test new skills, obtain new skills, or improve ourselves for when the markets do start to open up again?
Yeah, so I think it depends on what you're looking to do. I always encourage people, look at job listings on LinkedIn or on Indeed and see what excites you. If there are certain roles where you're seeing qualifications, maybe you're interested in a project manager role, and they say, you know, must have certificate. There's a project management certificate you can get, then that's a clue. Like maybe I should look into this project manager certificate. I have a client who's actually in the middle of a job change right now, going from business strategy. She wants to start her own interior decorating business. And what's interesting is there is a technology that she felt like she needed to be trained on. In her case, it's called Chief Architect, but it's for interior design. And she wasn't able to take this training because it was only offered in Orlando, Florida, and she lives in Chicago. But because of the pandemic, this company is now offering the training online. So oddly enough, it's worked in her favor because now she can take it online. So I think just think about like, what do you like to do? And look at job listings and see what commonalities there are for if there's certain programs or certifications that you could take that might help you.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I know like Coursera and even LinkedIn Learning, since LinkedIn acquired lynda.com, they offer some really great certifications. And sometimes it's a subscription to a month of Coursera courses or something like that. The cost can be relatively nominal.
Right. I mean, I know in my case, I help people a lot with their LinkedIn profile, but it wasn't something that I had ever formally been trained on. I would just read articles. But I decided, you know, in the beginning of the quarantine, especially, my client base had gone down because, you know, parents are most of my clients and they're trying to figure out homeschooling and everything. So I decided to look for a program on how to really become a LinkedIn expert. And I just finished a couple of weeks ago the certification. It's called Nationally Certified Online Profile Expert. So there are things out there that you might not even know exist. Right. But if you're interested in a certain program or technology or skill, just look for it. I'm sure that there's a training out there for it.
Yes. And I find in addition to looking at job postings, I'll look at people's LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time looking at other people's LinkedIn profiles. So I'm adding myself. But I also like to scroll down and see what are the certifications that they've gotten. You know, someone who has a job that's interesting, looking down at their certifications to see, okay, what did they get? So many times people add it to their education section. And that way you can very quickly find the organizations or the links to the different resources too. So that can be
a great idea. Great suggestion. Yeah.
You just have to be okay with letting people know that you're stalking a little bit.
You can set it up in your privacy settings though.
That's true. That's true.
So it looks like somebody was asking about the book. Let me just grab it here.
Sure. Fantastic.
So it is called Now What? 90 Days to a New Life Direction. And it's by Laura Berman Fortgang. And she has a couple different versions on Amazon. You just want the one with the red circle.
Great, great.
Or from your local bookstore. See if they can order it for you.
I know, supporting local these days is so important.
Yeah.
Here's another question that has come in. Do you have any recommendations about overcoming a challenge where potential employers think you are only capable of doing what's listed on your resume? So this is kind of building off of what we were just talking about, because sometimes making a big career move involves convincing others that you're flexible and capable of contributing to a completely different field.
Yeah, so sometimes, you know, in that situation, it can be helpful to volunteer at like a volunteer organization in that industry, so that you can start networking with people and they can start seeing what you're about. But, you know, a lot of it too is trying to get to know those people, have them get to know you, and really focus on like those transferable skills that we were talking about, and having them not see you in the way, you know, as the package that you have been in the past. So really, you know, in the conversations, talk about the skills that you have and the transferable skills versus the titles. You know, that's another way. And, you know, a lot of clients that I work with, they actually have tremendous success in trying to connect with old colleagues that might now be in the field that they're interested in. So people that know how they work. Yeah. And can vouch for you and be like, she's really smart, she's a hard worker, she can learn this easily. But you could also try to get certified in an area in the new field too.
Mm.
And LinkedIn also is a great way to establish yourself as a subject matter expert. You can post articles, you can write articles, you can even just comment on what other people are saying and start building your reputation in that new field. And just, starting to talk the talk, and people will start seeing you in a different light.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Sure.
We have time for one more question. How can you differentiate between temporary burnout and a need for change?
That's a good question. One thing I didn't mention is in my exploration, I've been a huge fan of meditation for, I would say, about 13 years now. I think that it's connecting with, what you're really like, try to figure out what's really going on. And sometimes you just have to be still and quiet and just listen to your inner voice, not the limiting beliefs inner voice, but that part of you that's wise and that knows. And sometimes we don't want to listen to that voice because it's hard, but oftentimes, that's where you're going to find that wisdom, like, am I really meant to do this? But there's also other things that you can do. You can talk to other people that are in your industry doing similar things and seeing how they're feeling. It could be, like right now, I find that I'm working with a ton of people in fashion that are really unhappy because fashion it's just been upended and the industry is changing completely. So it's a theme, people in fashion right now seem very unhappy. Because it's changed, it's consolidating, and it's just going in a totally different direction. So, it might be also just the company that you're in or your immediate manager. So I would see, try to conduct informational interviews with other people and see if they're struggling with the same things. Or maybe it's just your specific situation.
Well, and that, I made me think too, Tracey, about, when you talked about writing down the things that you hate and then figuring out, what that means. I could see that being so helpful to see, is it just this, like you said, this unique situation that you hate or the whole industry?
You're right. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you for that. Because I think that's a very good
and
tool.
I think one other thing I would add is, like, for myself in advertising, I know I was never reading the trade magazines. I didn't sign up for the daily emails of Ad Week. I just was not interested. I was not passionate about it.
Yeah.
And so, if it's something that you're not enjoying or like in your free time you want nothing to do with, that's probably a good indicator too.
Yes, that is a good point. Right. Well, I know we're right about at the hour mark, so I just want to say thank you so much for joining us.
This is such a privilege. Thank you so much for having me, and I hope it was helpful.
Oh my gosh, so helpful.
Don't hesitate to reach out, or if anybody has any questions, I would love to chat. I could talk about this stuff all day.
A good sign that you are in the correct career. Well, to everyone still joining us, thank you so much for making some time out of your day to be here with us. I love connecting with the Holy Cross community, even when it is remotely from my home. So thank you very much for this privilege. Thank you, Tracey, for sharing your advice. This has been recorded, and I'll share that with everyone once we get it up onto our YouTube page. So you can expect an email from me. There will be a survey that will open up shortly after you close this Zoom webinar. So please share your feedback. I always love new suggestions. I'm grateful to Michael Palumbo for bringing Tracey to us today. So if you have suggestions for other speakers, by all means, please send them along. And with that, thank you so much for joining us, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Take care. Thank you.